Until some point of time, Rabindranath Tagore was only praising the good qualities in literature when he read the literatures of the English. Japan has been spared the shadow of alien domination. Japan has this opportunity. Rabindranath Tagore says there is still time to correct all these mistakes. How do we understand the word civilization? What does it mean? But what is happening in the society? He takes an example of the society of India and society of Britain. Hello students, I am Anil, Assistant Professor of English, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. Today we shall discuss about the speech by Rabindranath Tagore titled Crisis in Civilization, prescribed for the university students of third semester B.BA. Before we move on to the speech, let us know about Rabindranath Tagore. Rabindranath Tagore, born in 7th May 1861 and died in the year 1941, was a Bengali polymath who worked as a poet, writer, playwright, composer, philosopher, social reformer, and painter. He reshaped Bengali literature and music as well as Indian art and contextual modernism in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. He is the author of profoundly sensitive, fresh, and beautiful poetry, Geetanjali. He became, in 1913, the first non-European and the first lyricist to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. Tagore's poetic songs were viewed as spiritual and mercurial. However, his elegant prose and magical poetry remain largely unknown outside Bengal. He was a fellow of the Royal Asiatic Society. He is referred to as the Bard of Bengal. Rabindranath Tagore, he was very much into the literature and he got the first Nobel Prize in Asia for literature. Let us see what is there in the speech, which is titled Crisis in Civilization. Rabindranath Tagore delivers this speech after his 80th birthday. It was scheduled to be spoken on his birthday to an audience, but he could not deliver it. Therefore, it is published in a newspaper after that. So in his paper, he talks about many things, but particularly pertaining to the concept of civilization. How do we understand the word civilization? What does it mean? But what is happening in the society? He takes an example of the society of India and society of Britain. He writes, in those days, the type of learning that was served out to us was neither plentiful nor diverse, nor was the spirit of scientific inquiry very much in evidence. So he starts talking about the literature of the West and the literatures of the East, and also the education system that was followed in England and also in India. So he says, in India, in those days, the type of learning that was served out to us was neither plentiful nor diverse. In India, we were not taught mathematics, science, geography, economics. These things are given least preference, but in the Western society, those were given the most preference. I had the opportunity of listening to the speeches of John Bright, both in and outside Parliament. He talks about a person, John Bright. He was a parliamentarian of Britain. When Tagore was in England, he learned that the ideas of Britishers were very attractive to the minds of Indians who went from India to study in England. So he says this man was a wonderful orator. He had great ideas, and Tagore used to hear the words of John Bright. He was a tradesman, and he used to talk in such a manner that society should be having all good qualities. He goes on and he tells, I naturally set the English on the throne of my heart. So considering the generosity of the British, the way they spoke, the ideology they had, the equality they wanted to achieve in the society, all these thoughts influenced Rabindranath Tagore. I naturally set the English on the throne of my heart, thus passed the first chapter of my life. Then came the parting of ways, accompanied with a painful feeling of disillusion. There came a time when, perforce, I had to snatch myself away from mere appreciation of literature. Until some point of time, Rabindranath Tagore was only praising the good qualities in literature. When he read the literatures of the English, he found it very appealing. But what happened when he returned to India? He somehow felt very different. He was only appreciating the literature, but what they followed in society, that started affecting Rabindranath Tagore's idea about the British. While I was lost in the contemplation of the great world of civilization, that is the British civilization, I could never have remotely imagined that the great ideals of humanity would end in such ruthless travesty. So, talking about their behavior inside England and their behavior outside England, Rabindranath Tagore finds it very disturbing. He could not digest that those people who are preaching civilization are not civilized outside their homeland. And all the time, before our very eyes, Japan has been transforming herself into a mighty and prosperous nation. So he compares the position of India under the rule of British and other countries which were not under the rule of British control or British rule. So here he talks about the achievements made by other countries. He wanted to keep the society of India and the society of other countries, and he wanted to see which one is better. And all the time now he talks about Japan. Japan has been transforming herself into a mighty and prosperous nation. I have seen with my own eyes the admirable use to which Japan has put in her own country the fruits of this progress. So Japan has been progressing because it was an independent nation. It is an independent nation. But India could not do so. Why? Because of the British rule in India. I have also seen Iran newly awakened to a sense of national self-sufficiency, attempting to fulfill her own destiny, freed from the deadly grinding stones of two European powers. I discovered to my delight that Zoroastrians, who once suffered from the fanatical hatred of the major community, had established itself in the happy land. So, talking about the Iran, he tells that even Iran is achieving progress because now it is free from the control of two European powers. But India is still under the control of the British. Therefore, India is regressing, going back, unable to achieve progress. But whereas India's neighbors and other countries of the world are achieving progress. Now he talks about the USSR, dominated by Russia. Her civilization is free from all invidious distinction between one class and another, between one sect and another, while other imperialist powers sacrifice the welfare of the subject races to their own national greed. In the USSR, I found a genuine attempt being made to harmonize the interests of the various nationalities that are scattered over its vast area. Though USSR was a very vast country, the government there or the people there are trying to achieve unity. They are trying to achieve progress. They are trying to progress with everybody. But in India, what was happening? The British had already created the division in the minds of Indians in the name of religion, in the name of many other things. British had divided Indians. But this is a country, USSR was a group of nations or Soviet, which is putting everybody on the same boat and taking them forward. That I consider is truly civilized administration, which impartially serves the common interests of the people. While other imperialist powers sacrifice the welfare of the subjects' races to their own national greed, in the USSR, I found this genuine attempt being made to harmonize the interests of the various nationalities that are scattered over its vast area. Thus, while these other countries were marching ahead, India, smothered under the dead weight of the British administration, lay static in her utter helplessness. So, when all these countries were progressing, they were achieving good. India could not do so. It was under the dead weight of the British. The weight of the British was making India crumble. One cannot believe that Indians are in any way inferior to Japanese in intellectual capacity. The most effective difference between these two Eastern peoples is that whereas India lies at the mercy of the British, whereas Japan has been spared the shadow of alien domination, Japan has this opportunity. We know what we have been deprived of, that is independence. that which was truly best in their own civilizations, the upholding of the dignity of human relationships, has no place in the British administration of this country. British people were very nice in their own country, but when it comes to the national importance and civilization, British chose national importance. They wanted to give preference to national greed, the wealth of the nation. They wanted to take the wealth of the entire world to one particular place, England. They did not follow what they preached at their home. And yet, my good fortune has often brought me into close contact with really large hearted Englishmen. Here, Rabindranath Tagore expresses, though I am losing hope in the concept of civilization as expressed by the British, which is just preached and not followed, I have not lost faith in humanity. There are people who are good. So he talks about the people. Really large-hearted Englishmen, without the slightest hesitation, I may say that the nobility of their character was without parallel. In no country or community have I come across such greatness of soul. Such examples would not allow me to wholly lose faith in the race. Rabindranath Tagore says, so such people make me still hold the faith in those culture which produced them, and I had the rare blessings of having Andrews, a real Englishman, a real Christian, and a true man, for a very close friend. Today, in the perspective of death, his unselfish and courageous magnanimity shines all the brighter. The whole of India remains indebted to him for innumerable acts of love and devotion. So here he talks about a man, Andrews. He is a missionary in India, and this man helped many number of Indian people to lift themselves up from their states of unhappiness. And this man supported the Indian freedom movement, which started in Calcutta. So he remembers this man, and he tells that there are good people among those who had lost faith in civilization. And these people make Rabindranath Tagore to have a little hope on civilization. But today, when I am about to quit the world, that faith has gone bankrupt altogether. So Rabindranath Tagore is expressing, when I am nearing my death at the age of 80, I am losing faith. As I look around, I see the crumbling ruins of proud civilization. Once Rabindranath Tagore felt that the British civilization was very great. But what is happening? Now it is crumbling down. It is falling down. It is getting destroyed and strewn like a vast heap of futility. And yet I shall not commit the grievous sin of losing faith in man. So here he tells, though I am losing faith in the civilization, yet I am not going to commit this grievous crime of losing faith in man. Man can be made correct. He can be corrected. He can be brought to the right path. Today we witness the perils which attend on the insolence of might. One day shall be borne out the full truth of what the sages have proclaimed. By unrighteousness man prospers, gains what appears desirable, conquers enemies, but perishes at the root. So in the end of his speech, he tells that there is time for correction. There is always a chance to move on the right path. So today we witness the perils which attend on the insolence of might. Today everybody is powerful. The British are very powerful to put down the revolts in India. But a day would come that they would understand their mistakes. They would give independence to India. One day shall come, or one day shall be borne out the full truth of what the sages have proclaimed. So finally Rabindranath Tagore expresses a quote by the sages which stands good for all the time. He says, unrighteousness man prospers. By unrighteousness man prospers, gains what appears desirable, conquers enemies, but perishes at the root. So Rabindranath Tagore says, he quoting the sages, tells, by wrong means we get everything. We conquer our enemies. But what happens? We rot from inside. we perish from inside, which destroys ourselves within us. Therefore, Rabindranath Tagore says, a culture which spread civilization to the entire world is crumbling down. They don't have moral rights to commit crimes all around the world. He takes the example of India, where poverty was rising, inequality was rising, and British were successful in dividing people in the name of religion and region. But Rabindranath Tagore says, there is still time to correct all these mistakes. They are simply taking the wealth from India and keeping it in England. So this is not good. What they teach or what they preach in England is not seen in India. Their behavior is completely changed. With these thoughts in mind, Rabindranath Tagore expresses that there is a crisis going on in understanding the word civilization. And he wants people to understand what true civilization is. Keeping this in mind, we shall wind up. We shall meet in the next class. Thank you.